Hello and welcome back to 22.1, solving by taking square roots. So as you can see here, it says to solve each equation using square roots. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I see an equal sign here, so I'm going to go ahead and draw a line straight down. So that way I know I have two sides of my equation. What is the opposite of a positive 6? Negative 6. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract both sides. That's going to be 0. And I'm left with 3 x squared equals, go ahead and calculate that out. So go ahead. That would be about 27. All right. We're almost done. We're isolating x squared on one side. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and get x squared by itself by doing the opposite of multiplying by 3, which is dividing by 3, and that's x squared equals 9. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to square root both sides, just like it says here, to solve by using the principle of square roots. Because whenever you have something squared, you can get rid of that 2 exponent by square rooting. Just like the opposite of a positive is negative, opposite of multiplying is dividing, opposite of squaring something is square rooting. They cancel each other out. So I'm left with x equals, now when you square root something, another thing you want to notice is when you square root a number, what you end up getting when you square root, let's say like 100, you will get a positive answer and you will get a negative answer. So they often denote this as plus or minus, so you'll get a positive. Square root of 9 is 3 or negative 3. So our exact solutions are 3 and negative 3. Moving right along. Here it says solve each equation using square roots. If it has to be in a radical form, give the answer in a radical form, then use the calculator to approximate the solution to 2 decimal places. Okay, so again I'm going to draw my line straight down. What is the opposite of a negative 9? A positive 9. Awesome. So that would be 15. 5x squared. Now I want to get x squared by itself. All right, so I'm going to do the opposite of multiplying by 5, which is dividing. And I get x squared equals, 5 goes into 15. 3 times. Now again, if I want to get rid of that squared or to the power of 2, I'm going to square root, so that'll cancel out. So I'll square root this side and this side, and I'm left with x equals the positive square root of 3 or the negative square root of 3. Now go ahead on your calculator, go ahead and figure out what that would be as a decimal value. So the exact solutions would be positive square root of 3 or negative square root of 3. But again, pause right here and figure out what that would be as a decimal. And as you can see here, if you work that out, that would be x is about positive 1.73 or negative 1.73. So that'd be approximately 1.73 or negative 1.73. All right, and again, that's to 2 decimal places, which is what they asked for here. All right, let's move it right along. Let's go ahead and again solve each equation using square roots. Give the answer in radical form, and then use the calculator to approximate to 2 decimal places if necessary. So first thing we're going to do, draw that line. And we're going to try and isolate x minus 9 squared. So we're going to get rid of that 2. What's the opposite of multiplying by 2? Dividing by 2. So that cancels out. And I'm left with x minus 9 squared equals whatever 128 divided by 2 is. So pause if you need to and work that out. And that would be 64. So again, we're going to go ahead and square root to get rid of that exponent. And I'm left with x minus 9 equals the positive. If I square root 64, that would be 8. So I have a positive 8 or negative 8, right? And what is the opposite of a minus 9? positive 9. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. And yes, you're saying, well, why is there 3 9s? Well, I'm adding it to the positive result and the negative result. So that would be x equals 8 plus 9, 17, or negative 8 plus 9, which would be 1. So that could be either one. Awesome. Let's move it right along. Next one, we're going to go ahead again and isolate that x plus 10 squared, right, by doing the opposite of multiplying, which is to divide. And before I forget, because I almost did, I'm going to draw that line. Alright, so I have x plus 10 squared equals whatever 24 divided by 4 is, which would be 6. And then we're going to square root both sides, right? And this is going to cancel out. I'm left with x plus 10 equals the positive square root of 6 or the negative square root of 6. We're going to do the opposite of adding, which is to subtract. So I'm left with x equals the square root of 6 minus 10 and the negative square root of 6 minus 10. So I'm going to work this out and figure out what the square root of 6 is. If you're not sure, go ahead and pause right here and square root 6 right now onto your calculator and work that out. So I found that to be about 2.45 if I rounded, or negative 2.45. So I'm going to work this out again in your calculator. Pause if you need to and work each one of these out. Alright, if you unpause, you would find that this would be about negative 7.55, which is what x is equal to, or negative 12.45. Awesome. Let's keep it moving right along. So here, word problem. Write and solve an equation to solve the problem. I have a storage container that has the shape of a rectangular prism. So I'm going to draw that out. I'm not the best drawer in the world, but you know what? I'm going to draw what I can. Because, you know, got to try it out. So rectangular prism. It's about 8 feet tall. Okay. Height. Right? And its length is 2 times its width. Alright, so its length is 2 times its width. So its length is 2 times its width, which I don't know, right? So length is 2 times its width. Width I don't know, so I'm going to write W. Volume is 400. So just so you know, just like it says here, volume is equal to length times width times height. So I'm going to write that in. Volume equals length times width times height. My volume was 400. My length is 2W. And my width is W. And my height is 8. So I'm going to go ahead and just solve all this out. That would be 2 times 8, which is 16. And W times W is W squared. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and draw my line. What is the opposite of multiplying by 16? Dividing by 16. Good job. So that would be W squared equals whatever 400 divided by 16 is. So go ahead and pause here and figure that out. And unpause, that would be about 25. So we will square root both sides. And we find out that W is equal to either positive 5 or negative 5. Now in the real world, is there such thing as a negative 5 feet wide box? Does that exist? No, that does not exist. But a positive result does. So that means W is equal to 5. So I found my width. Yay! Found my width. Now I just need to find my length. And they said length is twice my width, which was 5. And 2 times 5 would be 10. 10. So my length is 10 feet, my width is 5 feet. I have found both of the things they asked me to do. Double happy face. Let's move it right along. Alright, so here's another problem where it says area of a rectangular window. So my rectangular window, yay, it's so pretty, is about 32 square feet. And then the length of the rectangular windows, my length, is 2 times its width. Alright, so again, they give me area of a rectangle, which I kind of like that they do that because sometimes we forget, right? It's nice to have that as a reference. Area is 32. My length is just like it says here, is 2w times my width, which we don't know what that is, so we're going to write it as w. So 2w times w would be 2w squared. All right, let's go ahead and do the opposite of multiplying by 2, which is 2. Almost forgot that line. Dividing by 2, right? Yes. So that'd be w squared equals, again, if you don't know this off the top of your head, pause, work it out. 16. So let's square root both sides. That cancels out, and I'm left with w equals either a positive 4 or negative 4. And again, in real life, have you ever heard of someone saying that something is negative 4 feet wide? No, that does not exist. So we're going to say our width is 4. Now we found the width, yay, but we need to find the length. So the length, they said length is 2 times the width, which was 4. So 2 times 4 is 8. So that means we found our length, we found our width, and we are done with that problem. Let's continue on. So we have one more. It says the equation d equals 16t to the second power gives the distance d in feet of a golf ball that falls in t seconds. So a golf ball, if you ever hit it, goes up and then back down, right? That's pretty much like everything in life, right? Everything that goes up has to come back down. So it's how many seconds will it take for the golf ball to drop to a height of 64 feet? So the height will be distance, right? So we'll write out our equation, d equals 16t squared. And instead of d, we're going to write 64 feet. And we're going to solve this out. What is the opposite of multiplying by 16? Dividing, right? So we're going to do that to both sides. And we find that to be t squared equals 4. Let's go ahead and square root. I'm left with t equals, the square root of 4 is 2 or negative 2. Not negative 2. Now, if you ever heard of anyone saying negative 2 seconds, is that a thing? No. So what we're going to do is we're going to write t equals a positive 2 seconds. And we have found out how many seconds that would be. That would be 2 seconds. After 2 seconds, it'll be at 64 feet above the ground. Okay? Moving right along. Ooh, checkpoint! We're almost done, guys. We're actually going to do part 3 for 21.1 checkpoint in the next lesson. Alright, so stay tuned. We'll come back. We'll finish out the checkpoint and the homework.